Can you guys hear me okay? Microphone check 1, 2. If you can, welcome back. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Good to see you, Tammy. Inquisitive. If anybody wants to join the panel, just hit that link right there. So, what I have planned for you today is just focusing in on the chat. We had so much information to go over. I didn't really get a chance to focus in on what you guys were talking about. And that's the most important thing, really. Definitely isn't what I have to say. I'm glad you guys put up with me. Jeez. It's like he might be an asshole, but he's our asshole. So today we're going to just focus in on the chat and see what you guys have to say about what's going on with Abby and Libby's case and the appeal process of Richard Allen. What do you guys think about the new exhibits? If there's anything you have to say, hit that link, come on up. If not, we're just going to hang out and talk about everything and how you feel about it. Jari, welcome in. Amy, good to see you. Tech Death Hippie, what up, dude? Send me some beats. Send me a good boom bap hip hop beat. And then I'll put some raps to it and I'll use it as my intro. But you got to make it all spooky. Like Unsolved Mysteries. What's up, Inquisitive? Sleuthintuition@gmail.com. What's going on, Vix? How you doing? You guys are all busy today, huh? My son had his first shots, so he took it like a champ. He's going to be tough. The girls, they just cried. They cried for like an hour. He cried for a little while and then was back to like staring at the nurse. I was like, oh God. It's like you got to stay focused, dude. Don't get distracted out here on these streets. I'm telling you right now. All right, guys, we're focused in on the chat today. We're going to talk nothing but Abby and Libby, what's been going on social media wise with Richard Allen's appeal, the new exhibits, the old exhibits, anything relating to Abby and Libby's case. I know there were some posts by Kelsey, I think. Something was shared by Becky, I saw online. We could pull that up if you want. Dixie, welcome in. Thank you, Jari. Was that you, Tech? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that sounds fun, right? Spooky. Yeah, kind of mysterious, more like even like might make you think of like UFOs or just something mysterious, from missing people all the way to UFOs, everything in between. because that's really what my channel is. We do what we want to do, what we need to do. And especially when we cover cases, I know you guys are really curious. It's like, Sleuth, you can't get me all involved in this case and then, not take me with you when you go visit and do your investigating. So I do. Anthony, what's going on? Don't you think it's strange KA remembered TK from the news, but said she never heard of KK? KK was always in the news. That is a really good point. And that's the point of today's live stream. See, these were the great comments that I really couldn't focus in on, because we have time restraints. You always hear me say, oh, because of time, because of time. Well, I don't have a whole lot of time, Sometimes I might just have 2 hours or an hour and a half, or, we got to get through this information. We don't really have time to just focus in on the chat. But that's an excellent point, Anthony. Because if she was going to remember anybody, it would be Kagan Klein. So to me, I think she might have been lying. I think the 2019 New Direction presser might have accomplished, their ultimate goal. Hey, Jerry, thank you for that. You know what that means. Give a shout out to Jerry with a quick donation. Thank you for the tip. Very generous. Yeah, that means a lot right now. The economy seems like really shaky right now. So I appreciate that. Boston, what's going on? So that's a great question, Anthony. I mean, you guys know how I feel. All of my investigative work, I established 2 sources. Both of them are relatives of Kathy. And I wonder if they recently were named. I wonder if that's who I've been communicating with. Also, one of the people named was, if this is the right person, she was black. And I remember Kagan saying that he was hanging around with some black people, some black guys and an old guy. Black kids and a black elderly man. So if Kathy has black relatives, that could be her. So that could be like the weird connection between Kagan Klein and what was said in his affidavit. You guys remember that? But not only that, Tony Klein had a really close friend of his that would post to Facebook, and he would say, "Oh, look who's in town," Peru's most wanted or something like that. And that guy was black too. So I find it strange that they're asking Kathy about a specific name that she might be related to, and this person is black. So that could be a connection to Kagan and Tony right there, perhaps. Because we know that Kagan did mention that. Or no, one of his victims mentioned that happened to her. She saw that on a video. Might have been Skype. But yep, my sources told me that Kathy does know Tony Klein, that they were friends when they were younger. They're only 2 years apart. We know that Richard Allen and Tony could have worked together at the Chrysler plant, the one in Kokomo. So, I mean, there's a million different connections, right? They used to live in the same neighborhood. A month after Kagan confessed, Richard Allen was in handcuffs. So I don't know. I don't know if Kagan Klein confessed or if they explained to him what his role would be in this quarantine of information, right? Like, hey, We know that it wasn't just Richard Allen, but we need you to shut the hell up, Kagan. You're not going to get any favors, right? You'll be lucky if we don't do something to you in prison. Because, I mean, he's still got 40 years. That's a life sentence for him. So I don't know if he's just too stupid or too afraid, or made a deal and didn't do it correctly and then was taken advantage of. I'm just not quite sure what the hell is going on with all of that. How you doing, Boston? Melissa? Welcome, welcome. Thank you, Jari. She Warrior. All right, guys. Today's live stream is all about the chat. You guys can even join the panel if you'd like. The link is posted there. Mods, if you can't find it, let me know. I could post it again. Feel free to call in. Don't feel pressured to. But we've had a lot of information to go over and not a whole lot of time to kind of digest it and talk about it. So far, Anthony France said, didn't you find it interesting that Kathy Allen remembered Tony Klein being mentioned by the local news, but not Kagan Klein? But the truth is, Tony was hardly mentioned. So that's definitely like a countermeasure, right? Or a lie or a half truth. Going to be cold enough for a hoodie pretty quick. Sleuthintuition.com. Actually, if you guys want some merch, just email me and I'll give you prices. Usually it's just going to be the shipping. And honestly, I don't know what I have. But yeah, just email me and I'll go over prices with you. Typically it'll be like a Cash App, and then I'll get your email or I'll get your address and then I'll ship it out to you. But right now we might have t-shirts and hoodies. I can't remember. Got to go look in the box. So don't forget, Richard Allen worked at the CVS right around the corner from the Klein home. His mom in Mexico. Mexico is right there. It's like 11 minutes from Peru. Some people say it's 6 minutes. You have Richard Allen right there in Mexico, a 6-minute drive from the Klein home the morning before the murders happened. You have Kagan Klein logging in and out of the Anthony Schatz account into 2 separate phones at 8 a.m., right around the time you have Richard Allen at his mom's house, right? Trying to establish his alibi. Kagan set his alibi up successfully. He probably had a little bit of better help, somebody he could trust, right? Definitely a third person. Probably like his roommate, his cousin, some of the Trexler, maybe like a Cameron Patton type. Somebody like that. Somebody that he could trust. And I think that's what Richard Allen was trying to do. I'm going to go stop at my mom's. You know, they can get eyes on me. Yes, I saw him in Peru, right? So if his phone is moving around, so that's probably what he did. Maybe his phone was moving around with another person, or just sitting there at his mom's, you know, going through some kind of a playlist. Because honestly, think about it. You could go on YouTube and click some classic rock playlist, and that thing will play for 3 hours. What's up, Fishy? I don't know. Yeah, just do that. Connect your phone to something and just let it play. That was Kagan Klein's alibi. What was Tony's alibi? Well, his alibi was that he was with Kagan. So both their alibis are just Kagan, whose phone was connected to a Wi-Fi that's associated with a relative of his, the Trexler address. So 8 a.m. in the morning, you have Richard Allen near Peru. You have Kagan Klein logging in and out of the Anthony Shots account on two separate phones. And you also have what might have been the McCain vehicle parked oddly, according to Brad Heath, around this exact same time. So while they're logging into these phones and doing their part, potentially you have somebody doing recon. And then you have Teresa Liebert seeing this guy with like shaggy hair, wearing a beanie, kind of weird looking, kind of scruffy, messing around over by the private drive. So you got the funny car, Brad Heath, Liebert, weird guy by the private drive. At the exact same time, you have Kagan Klein logging into the Anthony Shots account on two phones and Richard Allen not far away, like close by. The same guy who worked at the CVS around the corner just 3 weeks before the murders happened. Like, what the fuck is going on here? Not to mention, you have Jerry Holman, Detective Vito, and everybody and their grandma saying that Abby and Libby were talking with Anthony Shots the night before, the day of, all the way up until the murders. So if you got people logging into multiple phones in the morning, nearby Richard Allen, people doing recon, around that same time, it's almost becoming clear that this was an ambush. Multiple people involved. How do you have a trial of Richard Allen and no mention of Kagan Klein? How is that possible? The only way that's possible is because there's multiple ways that's possible. Very powerful people made it so, or the defense team said, hell no. They're actually, through our investigation, we're saying that, yeah, they might be connected. Because they knew that Kagan Klein had confessed, right? And that the father, Kagan's father, had met with another person based on his confession. He said, my dad came out of the woods, and he said that we just had, fun. Like, who is we? The Elohim? The royal? The royal we? This aggression will not stand. She also stated Ricky never on social media. How does she know that when she said she never paid attention to what he was doing on his phone? And yeah, don't forget, people often overlook what can be done with an Xbox, especially around, that 2016, 2017. A lot could be done on an Xbox. You can access the internet. You can do whatever you want. It's basically a computer. And then you have all these back channels. But honestly, you could just have Richard Allen sitting in the Klein home. That was one of our early theories, right? The person we're looking for is somebody that might have just been sitting inside the Klein home, maybe just hanging out with them. Like, hey, my wife is, she hasn't been hanging out with me. Her brother died. She just wants to stay home, or I'm just so annoying to her. What do you guys got anything going on? Oh yeah, this is Rick. I used to work with them over at the fucking Chrysler plant, and I used to hang out with his wife, Kathy. We all, back over there on 2nd Street. What are you up to? Oh, I don't know. My brother-in-law just died. My daughter moved out. She's marrying some guy from Napanee. And I fucking lost my savings, right, in the stock market. I'm fucking stressed out, man. What are you doing, Kagan? Oh, I'm catfishing these girls in Delphi. What do you mean? Let me see. And then from there on out, you have Kagan, who knows better, right? He's not the one that wants to meet up. He creates these accounts, and then you got monsters. Well, he is a monster, but other monsters with other motivations stepping in and taking control, taking the wheel, and basically driving it off the edge of the cliff. He just kind of tries to ride that gray line, knowing if he meets anybody, like who's gonna fucking believe who's gonna change their mind and be like, oh, I thought you were Anthony Schatz. Oh, but now that I know that you're Kagan Klein, like I can get over that. It's like, no. Once they see him, they're just gonna fucking puke. So he's not gonna meet anybody. But if you're a violent offender and you're like, man, that's perfect. Because what is a sadistic killer constantly doing? They're constantly trying to figure out how to get from point A to point B, right? How do I turn this fantasy into a reality without risking my freedom or my livelihood or, anything? Well, they're looking for a way to get easy access to a vulnerable target and not get caught. So for somebody that's fantasizing about committing a murder like that, they might be intrigued by what Kagan Klein is doing. Like, hey, how long have you been doing this? Well, honestly, we now know he's been doing it since 2015. Like, you're telling me you've been doing this since 2015? Like, what are you doing? He's like, well, first you established the young person account, right? The Emily Ann. The Emily Ann, which is the Ann spelled with the E and also ends in 45, which Rick has an email address, Rick Allen 2045. And Kathy says, it's the Ann with the E at the end. So I think it's possible that Richard Allen is Emily Ann. That's him. So when he came over to the Klein home, that's what he would do. Him and Kagan would catfish girls. Kagan would show him how to do it. What's up, Heather? And then he would go back to work, right? If he was going to take his 30-minute lunch break, that seems like a good place to go. Maybe even print off some photos for him or something. What's going on? Growing crazy. So all we're doing today, guys, we're not really going over anything. We're just talking. We're going to have a conversation. If you'd like to join the panel and join me live here in studio, there is a link floating around there, and if I need to post it again, I will. But we're just talking about everything relating to Abby and Libby's case. Just trying to kind of digest all the information that we've been going over the last couple days. But I mean, it is bizarre, right? All this activity going on around 8 a.m. And you have Kathy who goes to work around 8. She says, yeah, I went to work and he went to his mom's. So you have all this going on with Kagan Klein and Rick over there in Peru, because I believe they're the ones that are connected. But there's another element. There's another element that's going on around the bridge area and the trails. Now, who could that be? Right? That's the recon. That's the planning, the tightening up of it all. I mean, that would be a really good plan. This could be a plan that went wrong for them, right? Think about it. It's like lions. Have you ever seen how lions hunt when it's the female lions? They do like almost like a 3-point flank, one directly on and two from the side. And they just kind of lay in wait. And then they have somebody else that just kind of pushes from the back. And then no matter what direction they go, they're going to run into a predator. That's kind of like what happened here. It was like they covered all angles. We had this activity around 8:30 a.m. near the private drive. Right at around 1:58 p.m., there's a vehicle pulls up to the private drive, doesn't stop. It's almost as if they dropped somebody off. So let's say hypothetically McCain, right, dropping off Tony or somebody along those lines, somebody else that they're with, and then pulling back around and then parking at the mirrors, right, so that they can go be the lookout. Tony's like, well, what are we going to get out of this? Well, McCain said he was going to pay me a lot of money. Plus, you guys could take your own copies of the videos, right? He'll make you a copy. And that's what you guys can take to Las Vegas and try to sell it. Because I think that's what Kagan was into. He was into exchanging CSAM, and that's like his deal. That would be something that he would want out of it, right? Remember, and he's the one that confessed to trying to meet somebody on Craigslist. And he had another burner phone that he set up out there with no password. The only reason you're not going to set up a password is because you have multiple people probably using your phone. So he told law enforcement he was meeting people for drugs. You're not going to meet anybody on Craigslist for drugs. If you are, you know for sure it's a cop. So you must have some type of a coded phrase that only this individual would know, right? Like what's our passphrase? Okay, this guy's legit, right? So it all seems tied in to me. Originally, I thought that Kagan Klein may have reached out to Richard Allen and convinced him that there was some type of monetary gain if he participated in this. But now I think it's the other way around. I think it's Richard Allen hanging out with the Kleins doing catfishing stuff right around the time, end of 2016. He's kind of either reconnected or just been spending more time there. And he's not going to tell his wife that. If she knows who they are and what kind of people they are, that could have been just a secret. He doesn't seem to have a whole lot of friends. He keeps to himself. Seems to be annoying. Kathy seems annoyed by this guy. Right? She's like, he's just depressing. He doesn't have any friends. He's fat. I don't even look at him when he comes in the room. It's like she's just annoyed by him. Like he's a Debbie Downer. Right? Oh, comes in the room like, fuck, I ain't got no money. I gotta go drink a fucking 12 pack. Like, all right, go, yeah, get the fuck out of my face. Like, oh, I haven't seen him in a week. I didn't even notice. He's over there at fucking Decline catfishing people online. You ain't gonna pay attention to me. I'll just do it. I'll do what Kagan does. Seems to be working for him. They're both incels. If you look at what's really going on with Rick Allen, that's what he is. I'm getting those vibes from him, right? This internalized, really quiet hermit. She's the one that used the word hermit, right? That's kind of what Kagan was, like the basement dweller, a Coburger. What's up, JB? Every time this killer gets any attention, probably just re-victimizes the families of Abby and Libby. He had a trial, was found guilty. That is it. KK is a pervert, no doubt about it. Well, that's your opinion, buddy. Seems like Kathy and Ricky just shared a space together, but didn't communicate or spend time together in the home. Yeah, they just coexisted. So the truth is, we don't know anything about Richard Allen, right? We don't know anything. So to assume one way or the other is just speculation. So I'm going to admit that right off the bat. But with that being said, that goes for him being a good person too, right? People that are speculating, oh, he's just a family man. He's just your everyday small town dad. You don't know that. And then you have us over here. Oh, well, he's, connected to the Kleins and he's a CSAMmer. Blah, 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 blah. I don't know that. Two sides to that coin. But I think it's all becoming clear. right? I think we know enough about this case that there's more people involved and that the corruption behind it was to isolate Rick Allen for whatever reason. And I don't know why they would do that. The 2019 presser tells me they knew it was Rick and they needed something more so that they can get the probable cause. It's almost like in 2019 they made the decision like, okay, we can't hide Rick Allen anymore. Right? He didn't do what we told him to do. He didn't establish his alibi like Kagan Klein did. He fucked up, he panicked, he did this and that. Eventually they're going to find him. We did our best to hide him. We hid the tip. We kept him out of the public view, just like Dave and Kagan Klein. So it's almost like they just quarantined the information as soon as they realize it's going to be released. So that might even have been a hint telling Rick, like, hey, man, I'm sorry. We tried to keep your name out of this, but you're the one that fucked up. And we told you from the beginning, if people, stray from the plan and they panic or they fuck up, you will be quarantined. Right? We're going to isolate you and you're going to take the fall for it all. Because if you don't, we're going to hurt your family. Like, look what we just did to Abby and Libby. Think about what we'll do to your daughter. That's why he's like, is my wife okay? Is my daughter okay? And it could be another reason why he's okay with not really confessing. Anthony Francis is speculating on what his wife said. We really don't know. You're right. But it is another interesting thing that when he put the gun in his mouth was right around the time of the New Direction presser. So Kathy said he put a gun in his mouth 3 years prior. So about 3 years ago from the time she was giving that interview. That was 2019. Right? We want to know who's parked at the CPS building. Well, shit, Kathy said that's where we always park. So you got to imagine Rick shitting his pants. Like, oh, man. And then they're like, everybody knew that was Dave McCain in that sketch, mixed with an FBI agent's interpretation of what was being seen on the video, who was Daniel Pearson and the FBI agent. And it ended up being Dave McCain. I mean, they admitted it. It was Dave McCain. Betsy Blair saw Dave McCain parked at the CPS building as well. What the fuck? Nobody served a search warrant on him. Because that's not what they're looking for. They were looking for the guy in the black car who talked to Doolin. Right? The not so lost tip. They needed that to be the guy. Makes you wonder, right? There's no DNA, no male DNA found. There's a very subtle hint of male DNA that's you can't work with it. It's not enough, not with our technology. Makes you wonder if they hid that information or if somehow, if they're helping to hide Richard Allen and Dave McCain and Kagan Klein, what else did they do? What else did they do to ensure that these guys weren't mentioned publicly? I mean, Dave was never really even called out by name. He was the flannel shirt guy. And we heard that from Anthony Greeno. He says, well, I interviewed him and I recorded it. Not that he's the most trustworthy, but he did show like a clip of it where he's talking to Dave. And they were at the Freedom Bridge, and he literally had the video of himself talking to him. So I believe this might have been true. And this was a little bit before the whole AI shenanigans. But yet, nobody really talked about him. They're over here talking about Brad Holder. This guy with I wouldn't call it an ironclad alibi, that's for sure. But he has an alibi. You have a crime scene that hasn't been officially labeled a pagan ritual site, right? It's just being interpreted in so many different ways. So they haven't even said unequivocally, "Hey, this is a Norse pagan ritual crime scene. These are signatures, 100%." Like there hasn't been a consensus on that. So you can't just jump from that if you're not sure and just say, "Oh, well, Brad Holder's a good suspect." That's confirmation bias. What you're doing is you're using Brad Holder as your crime scene, right? You're starting there. You're like, "Here's my car wreck. We're going to investigate from him outward." But that's false. That's not what you should be doing. That's confirmation bias. You need to first be looking at your crime scene, and if it naturally goes to Brad, great. But that's not what happened. They had Brad's information first, right? The defense team. Then they had some mentions of Norse pagan ritual within the discovery, and then they had the crime scene photos. So they were trying to figure out how to use those sticks, right? Well, what's the best way to use those sticks? Well, go get the weird guy who has this weird stick fetish without even trying to establish what the sticks are, what they mean, what the killer was using them for. You just step right over it. And that's confirmation bias at its finest. And you guys hang tight. I'm going to be right back. Talk amongst yourselves. All right. Sorry about that, guys. All right. So if you're just joining us, basically what we're doing is we're going to hang out in the chat. We've had so much information to go over that we didn't really get enough time to digest the information and have a open discussion about it. So that's what we're doing. If anybody wants to call in, the link is floating around in the chat. It's good to see you, Grunge. What part? I don't know. I just was kind of babbling on. Amy says there's so much more to this. I hope it comes out in the future. Well, you have two aspects to this crime. You have the crime scene and the planning and kind of like a spider web, right? A spider web in the Delphi Trail, the Monon High Bridge Trail. That's their trap. That's their spider web. So it's just interesting that you have a man with a digital camera, somebody who knows his way around there. Like that used to be his family's land, right? The McCain farm. And he calls it his dream. We don't know what's going on in his mind. We don't know if he's motivated to come up with some scheme. All I know is that Abby and Libby dying, being murdered there and their bodies being thrown onto Ron Logan's property, brought their foundations and their nonprofits millions of dollars. You're telling me that they're not going to launder any of that money? You're going to tell me that there's not a motivation there? I mean, what's investigations 101? Can anybody tell me? All right, what's the first question you ask? Who stands to gain anything? Who stands to gain by committing this murder? Yeah, who's motivated? Yep, track the money. Who is gaining from what happened? It was definitely those nonprofit foundations established by Dan and Dave. And around 2013, it was Dave who said, save the Monon High Bridge. Save it. Why? Because it's on his family's property. If you look at everything that Dan's been doing, everything he does is on his old property that he has roots in. That's all Dave's doing, right? The corn crib, the shack, that was built by the McCain family. It was originally his land. Ron Logan, same thing. The McCain farm. Honestly, they could have been trying to set up Ron Logan. Yep, follow the money. And we're not talking about 100,000, 200,000. We're talking like a few $1 million with no oversight, really. He was on the trails. He was reported on the trails from 2 to 4, between 2 and 4. That could have given him enough time to go down there. And a lot of people say, well, what if they were taken off property? Well, if they were taken off property, they didn't go far. And it would have either had to be through the cemetery or the private drive and taken to the CPS building. But that's not what happened. I think that that's what they planned to do. That could have been their grand idea. And who's going to come up with that idea? Well, possibly Rick and Dave together. Okay, well, we have the place, we have the spot. This is the perfect location for what we want to do. Now, how do we get from point A to point B? Rick's like, well, let me handle that. I know a guy. He says, look, Kleins, we need help with this. Your role would be we need you to help us lure our targets or a victim, specific victims to a specific location at a specific time, right? As above, so below. They're trying to align something. There's like this mysticism that's involved. And that could be something that's present at the crime scene and not Odinism, which I don't think there is any of that really either. But that could be the motivation. And then we recently found a connection to Rick with a band called Moonfall, and they're definitely a satanic band. So that could be a connection to him. And if that is connected to him, that's him, right? Rick 2045 at frontier.com. Search his email, and that's what you find. Vix Rocks. I wonder what Fed grants were involved. Yeah, we've done a couple of live streams on all the money that's been funneled in. And they really didn't do any of the real work until around the trial, right? So right before the trial, right around the time that Rick was arrested, that's when you started seeing all the work go into the Monon High Bridge. So to me, that was kind of a cover-up too, right? Because during the trial, they're going to say, well, how much money was donated? Okay, well, I don't see $2 million out there. So they have to do all of the construction and make it look like, hey, there's the money. Let's see. Yes, what they said about Rosie's brother. Crazy how he was somehow involved with the bungling of the marathon footage. What are you talking about, Frank? You're the second person to mention that. Um, Remember, where does that information come from? What's the source? Lots of wild stuff in the newest drop. I agree, especially the Betsy Blair stuff saying that um, they know that she was talking about Dave McCain's vehicle. Well, the car that she's talking about was parked at the CPS building. Dave McCain even testified that, yeah, he parks at the CPS building. It's crazy. Peggy says, I really believe there's something of significant value on Logan's property. I looked at old records and the water was extremely valuable. I forgot that type of what water it was. It has therapeutic value. Also, there used to be a cave over there too, Peggy, but apparently it collapsed in on itself. But honestly, if you just created another entrance, right, from another location and hit it better, you could just collapse that one in on itself, hide it from the public, and then now you're the only one with the access. And that could have been also something that was involved. Maybe they were trying to take them there. Whatever it was, it went wrong. They were not expecting Brad Weber. Brad Weber threw everything off. It could have been a failed abduction because they wanted time. Whoever did this spent a lot of time with Abby and Libby. It was like an hour and 45 minutes from the kidnapping to the muddy and bloody guy. But the killer could have spent more time than that. Could have come back at night. Remember, the girls weren't found till the morning. So they call off the search, and then here comes the moon ritual or whatever is the moon spell. There you go, Frank. Moon spell. I mean, just think about it. Let's say you're the killer, you're the one out there trying to do the ritual. All you need are the girls out there deceased in this fashion, and all you got to do is sneak out there, wear all black, sneak out to the crime scene, and do your ritual, and then sneak back out. Only person who would be able to do that and know that place that well would be probably Dave. And we know that he's into that weird shit. He's into mysticism and sex magic, that Aleister Crowley shit. And at the core of it all, it's Satanism, is what it is. Anthony never heard that about his brother and the marathon gas station video. I've heard that a couple times, but there's been a lot of misinformation being spread around, and it's a little bit annoying. But um, it's been pretty easy to weed out for me, but I know it's probably tough for you guys. The information comes from Jerry Holman and the doc dump. What information about Kagan? I know Frank. Frank's talking about how Rosie's brother is apparently in law enforcement in some capacity, and apparently he was involved in the handling of the marathon gas station footage in the doc drop. See, that's not the way I see it. From my information and what I know about it, Frank, it was the FBI's job. It was up to them to go pick it up. So it was an FBI agent from an Indiana office who was tasked with picking up, and I might have something to verify that. I mean, it's possible. Lost marathon footage. I don't know. This is like an old article or something. Well, anyway, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the FBI because they were heavily criticized by it or for it. Yeah, I don't know what you're referring to, Frank. You're gonna have to point me into the direction of your source. Some moonshine. Easy on the moonshine. I promise, Luth. Gray Hughes read. I don't know what you're talking about, growing. I don't know what you're referring to. Read what? Are you talking about the Brad Heath stuff? Need some context in the chat. I'm always about 6, 7 minutes behind you guys. I think the big question is who told the FBI that ISP, Rosie's brother, was going to pick it up? Sounds like a ruse. Yep, I agree with that, Peggy. Okay. So if you have somebody like a Dave McCain, and this is all hypothetical, this is just my opinion. This is for educational and investigative discussion purposes only. If somebody like a Dave McCain is motivated, trying to help his brother out, trying to help himself out, trying to acquire Ron Logan's land, right? He's not working with us. He's not willing to sell. They're also trying to acquire the CPS building simultaneously, which isn't going well. And eventually they lose that battle or may have made it, look like they lost that battle to get rid of evidence. Shit, maybe something did happen in the CPS building that we don't know. Maybe they were using those facilities to conduct his rituals. His experiments is what he likes to call them. Old Davy boy. So he's motivated by mysticism, sex magic, and also his lust of acquiring this land, and his dream is what he called it, of rebuilding the Monon High Bridge. So if he's motivated in that and he needs help, and if he's a sadistic psychopath, he might come up with the idea of killing 2 girls and at the same time bringing the much needed attention and lure to the area, possibly getting rid of a Ron Logan, right? Trying to set him up. And the fact that he worked with Richard Allen in taking down the shack, maybe they exchanged some dark secrets about that shack. You want to hear something about this shack? You want to hear, because I believe what they were doing then was funneling money. I think the McCains and Richard Allen were defrauding Walmart through Richard Allen. I think they were laundering money. Like, hey, bring a group of people from Walmart. We'll tear down the shack and we'll mark it up, right? We'll make the invoice look ridiculous. And then because of your participation, that'll qualify you to send our nonprofit a shit ton of money. If you do that, Rick, we'll give you something on the back end. So I don't know. I think if you're going to do a real investigation, you might need to audit those motherfuckers. Honestly. So if they had some kind of nefarious business dealings, prior to this, I could see a sadistic psychopath, hypothetically, and Dave McCain saying, hey, I see that you've wasted all your money, Rick, on the stock market like a fucking idiot that you are. And you have a wedding and you have college, bills, tuition bills, and funerals for your brother-in-law, and you're losing your mind. I have an opportunity for you. Right? I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do this plan. We're going to kill these girls, and I'm going to do this weird sex magic thing on it. And you're going to use my camera to document it. But instead of it going down that way, here comes old Brad Weber, to spoil the party. So if Dave is recruiting Rick, like Satan enticing him, like, ooh, dangling the carrot in front of him, and he really needs it, and he's kind of out of his mind anyway, he's already losing control of his life. Hell, he might say, well, I've been fantasizing about doing something like this. Here's my opportunity. Well, who do they pick? Who's their victims? I don't know. I think maybe Rick might have selected them. Right around July of 2016 was the creation of Anthony Shots, and Emily Ann was well in use by then. Ann with an E and ends with 45. Richard Allen is Rick Allen 2045 at frontier.com. Right? Sometimes things become repetitive for us. And we're not thinking, oh, well, investigators are going to come back later on and, connect this. But they do. There's my email. Let's go to Frank. Also in the doc drop, when the one answering questions is talking about how it was apparently Rosie's brother that was doing whatever with the footage, when you say the doc drop, which document are you referring to? If you could just tell me what document, I could go pull it open and we can look at it. Growing Crazy, read the Jerry Holman disposition today. Oh, I read the Jerry Holman disposition today. You mean deposition? You will get caught up, I am sure. I've already read it. I have it. That's what I was doing all morning. What are you referring to? I know that you have been busy with your bait. You're funny, Growing. I still don't know what you're talking about, though. I still haven't gotten a clear comment from you. Thank goodness for Logan's son. I hope McCain never gets control over that property. Does anybody know if McCain and Logan had any beef? I don't know if Logan's son. Somebody was telling me that they believe the McCains have acquired that land from the son already, but I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. When you read it, you will be shocked. Jerry talks about what? Growing. I don't know what you're talking about. What part specifically? The Kagan Klein part? Yes, I found it very interesting. Holman's deposition. I also interpret his testimony to mean that Rosie would not be tasked to do that. Interesting. All right, guys, we're at the 1 hour mark. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity. Anybody that wanted to call in, anybody with an axe to grind or with a point to make or a question to ask. So maybe we'll do this again a little bit later tonight if I have an opportunity. That's a big maybe, a big what if. Thank you, guys. Looks like I got a Cash App. I appreciate that. Thanks for all of your support. It goes a long way. Believe it or not, it really does. It means a lot to me. So big shout out to my members, my moderators, always holding it down in the chat. If you're part of that replay crew, you know we're watching. We see your comments. So please leave a comment and let us know what you feel about everything that's been going on with Abby and Libby's case and Richard Allen's appeal. So shoot me an email if you want, sleuthintuition@gmail.com. And if you could, please hit the like button on the way out and consider becoming a member. Otherwise, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again real soon. Peace.